your dream isn't your dream if you can just do it immediate, right? Like your dream has to be the end goal, and the only way it's a dream is if you hate where you are right now. So it's okay to hate where you are, but it's not okay to settle. And a lot of people are settling because they're afraid.
What's going on? You're listening to episode 83 of the Perspective Podcast, and I'm your host, Scotty.D.Russell of Perspective Collective. This show is about carving out time to build something for yourself. I want to share what is and isn't working for me, along with sharing my guest point of view. This platform also allows me to cast the spotlight and celebrate those creating big waves in the community through interviews and a weekly dose of inspiration in the outro, so stick around to the end because it could be you. All right, from the outside looking in, we tend to think the rock star creatives we look up to are living this perfect curated life through the lens of social media. However, when you peel back the curtain, things aren't always what they seem. We all deal with adversity, whether you see it or not. And at the end of the day, it's all about how you respond. Are you the type of person who cowers in a corner when you take an L? Or are you the type of person who dusts yourself off and takes the blow to the chin as a learning experience? It all boils down to a choice. And you always have a choice to respond. Cue today's guest. Branding, designer, and illustrator Goliath Adam Grason, reigning out of Orlando, Florida. Adam has crushed major projects for major brands like Google, VaynerMedia, Dunkin' Donuts, and Target, to name a few. Behind the social media lens, though, he's a normal, down-to-earth, genuine dude who deals with his own adversity as a father, husband, and designer. In this episode, Adam serves up an enthusiastic and transparent cocktail of topics like his recent breakup with Disney. That he gets really deep on that one. Leaving behind a legacy and creating for impact, putting people over profit first, self-belief and buying into yourself, and obviously so much more. Plus, you know what his favorite pizza is, some typefaces, all kinds of that groovy shit. I have a feeling you're going to want to take on the world after hearing this one. I have no doubt. You can find the show notes to this episode filled with Adam's jaw-dropping work at perspective-collective.com/83. If you found value in this episode, please consider supporting the show by becoming a pledger at patreon.com/perspectivepodcast with as little as much as your weekly cup of coffee. You can help the growth of the show by improving the quality, by helping me get new equipment, keeping up with hosting costs, as well as bringing on more help as I continue to build this outside the day job. What also helps the show grow is by sharing the show on social media, subscribing, and leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcast, aka iTunes. A review only takes a few minutes, and in the outro of each episode, I also share a review from someone like you to publicly return the love and plug you as well. Finally, if you catch some inspiration from the show, create some work and tag me at Perspective Podcast on Instagram. I'll give it a share where I post each week's episode artwork and make sure you get some credit. Let's get into the show. Well, I don't want to jump into a traditional introduction here because last thing you said to me when we were kind of going back and forth on Instagram was currently you're going through a career renewal. Like you went through a rehab of self-belief. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just tear right into that because, you know, from the outside in, so many people think life is amazing for everyone and they're crushing it. Big clients, amazing artwork, popping off on Dribble. I saw you got that 100K award. Congratulations on that, by the way. But if you can like go a little bit more into that, well deserved. I've been looking up to your work for years now, since the early Creative South days where we first met.
Yeah, man. So it's a long story, but it's good for a podcast, I think. As you know, I've done a lot of work with the Disney company, like a lot. It probably took up about 3 years of my focus. Like, don't get me wrong, I did have clients like Google and other sweet clients that would come along too. But for the most part, my main focus was the Disney company. With that, I kind of took on, I don't want to say a persona, but I took on just this, because I did so much work with it, it took over my identity. And I didn't realize it at the time. Like, it's not something I was like very like, oh, I'm turning into a Disney like designer. It wasn't at all what my focus has always been. I want to make art that impacts the lives of other people. And I think I can do that in any shape or form. So to me, when I landed all that Disney work and started working with them full time, or not full time, but like so much freelance, it just kind of took over my identity. And I started to not respect them quite as much. And I say that in saying I was showing work on Instagram that I shouldn't have been showing in my story. And I wasn't thinking, like, it's not like I was thinking, how can I disrespect the Disney company? I was more sort of looking at it on the outside going, the people that follow me on social media, they look up to me. So if I show this kind of like grunt work stuff or, works in progress, and then they might see something in a park or might see something online that they can kind of feel inspired by it. But in doing so, I ended up burning all my bridges with Disney. Like, I haven't touched Disney work. Like, all my contracts have been nulled, removed because of those decisions.
NDA stuff?
Yeah. And it was just careless. It was stupid on my part, and I chalk it up to just kind of looking at social media more than looking at my work. I was more so concerned with the numbers there than I was concerned about the work coming in. And so once all that work was removed and once those contracts were gone and I lost all of it, I remember the day that I got the paperwork out my door. I was supposed to do a bunch of work on a bunch of really like huge scoped projects. Simultaneously, the paperwork showed up at my door from a sheriff deputy, basically scared the daylights out of me. Here's these papers. If you show anything else you've ever done for Disney, you're going to court, kind of thing. It left me feeling completely and utterly empty because I had sown so much time into it and I had become something in my brain about it that once the work was removed, I literally, I had no idea how to freelance again. So I spent like 6 months straight just trying to relearn because Disney was giving me all the work that as soon as they were gone, I was like, wait, what happened to when Target wanted me to work with them or Google wanted me to work with them or Apple? All these clients that came throughout that time, I started realizing I had sunk so much of my effort into making Disney-inspired art that it turned off a huge amount of my clients that I once had.
Because you kind of just curated one style, like this is what I know how to do.
Exactly. And it screwed me. It screwed me bad. And that's one thing, like, I have two people that I'm mentoring. One I mentor a lot closer than the other. And that's one thing, like, he lives here in Orlando and he does a lot of, Disney-inspired work or whatever, but I try to warn him it's a double-edged sword. You better, if you're going to develop a style that can be adapted for Disney, you need to be very adamant that same style can be used abroad on other clients, whether it's children's books or, Target, whatever your dream client is. Make sure your style does not just sink into one specific, because it screwed me real bad. And for 6 months, dude, I was fighting depression because I had made the huge mistake. And I thought, like, oh my God, like, I had all these aspirations within Disney. And it was eye-opening how much of my creativity I entrusted to the Disney company that should have been mine in the first place. You know what I mean? So yeah, I've been in a career renewal. I'm glad to say I'm finally like over the depression. And I'm finally like through that side of it where I was super hard on myself. And I was very hard on myself. Like, my wife had to like snap me out of it a couple of times just because, like I said, I entrusted so much of my efforts into one thing that it really screwed me. But yeah, now I'm definitely on the mend for sure. I feel like a whole new level of creative juices and aspiration, inspiration, goals. I have to say, though, I'm so glad it happened the way it did, because now I'm dreaming so much larger than Disney. And Disney is so many people's end goal. And for me, because it has been removed, my aspirations, like, I don't have a dream client now. Like,
your dream client's yourself.
Yeah, like, I have people I'd love to work with, but I'm more so focused on creating impactful work that I don't care if it's some huge corporation. I don't care if it's some like small shop or some small rinky-dink mom and pop shop that is just looking for simple branding and they can't afford the same dollars that Disney would pay me. I don't care anymore. You know, I want to make the art that affects people. And I think if I didn't have things work out the way they did, my focus would be completely wrong. And I'm as hard as it was for 6 months. And dude, like I was late on rent for 3 months. My power's been turned off. My internet's been shut off. And there's nothing worse than like having a deadline with the client and your internet gets shut off and you go to use your phone's like hotspot and then, oh crap, I forgot to pay the phone bill too because I don't have any money coming in. Like I hit rock bottom because of my decisions. And it's just, I'm grateful because I work so much harder and so much smarter now.
And it allows you to see, like, failure isn't always failure. It could springboard you into the next chapter or phase. So many people would, like, have that shit happen to them, and that would be it. It'd be time to hang it up, quit art, and go flip burgers or something.
Yeah, exactly. I was close too, dude. I was close, man, because there's nothing like when your wife gets pregnant and your power shut off. I can't, like, it was so bad. I couldn't even buy pet food to feed my pet. Like, it's so weird. Like people on the outside, they look at like my work and they look at all that stuff and think, oh, like he's probably fine.
I would have never known.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. Like, what do I, like, I go to Insta story and I just like cry, you know what I mean? Like I can't do that. And I can't, you know, fight it. But it was to the point where it was like, man, I once worked at Publix supermarkets. I guess I could probably talk to an old manager that I've seen at a Publix nearby my house and, you know, get a part-time job. But it's like when you know you're supposed to be doing something, the opportunity and the choice to go abroad and to admit failure, full failure, is so hard. And so for me, it was just scrap, dude. I was doing work after that point when I lost that, and I was taking like any project I could get. I didn't care their budget. And I have to say that was part of the story for me about learning to appreciate the small client too, was I was so desperate for work to pay my bills that legit, whoever it was, I didn't care at that point. It was like, I don't care that you want to pay me like $100 for a logo. Like straight up, let's do it. I'm gonna make you the best logo I can for $100 because I'm $100 short on rent this month. So it taught me so much, man, to appreciate people over the dollars too. And it's, you know, it's hard sometimes because I still think about it sometimes because I did have like aspirations, for instance, to like do some gallery work for Disney, but it's rewarding to now admit to myself that there are more important things than petting my ego by having my piece of art in a Disney gallery. You know what I mean?
I want to circle back around to this topic because I have some other questions about, you know, the style and things that you've been creating lately. In a sense, it reminds me of Nick Slater, that you, and this is a high compliment, not that your work mimic his, but like, I don't know what to expect when you post next. And I think that's actually something amazing that, you know, some people just have one set style and you're just crushing it from all different angles. But here's usually my question to get things started. But man, we're deep right now. I love it already. But for those who don't know, give us a brief Wikipedia page summary about yourself.
So yeah, I'm self-employed. I have been on and off since probably 06, 08, somewhere in between there. I've been internal at Disney. I've been internal at an agency out of Arizona. But to be honest, those are the two only people I've ever worked for full-time in my craft. Besides that, I literally went from designing church bulletins to being part of like one of the largest campaigns Krispy Kreme ever did abroad. Very like fast growth mindset, like trying to be impactful. But yeah, so I had humble beginnings, I guess, and now I'm at the point where, like I said earlier, I'm very much focused on the kind of work I want to create for the kind of clients I want to have. So yeah, I've graphic designer, illustrator, wearer of many hats. First and foremost, father, husband to my beautiful wife, Christina, soon to be son Finn and current son Harper. Yeah, man, that's who I am.
Well, and we linked up. What sucked is I had Tight Fight like right in the middle of your talk. What would that have been? 2016. I spoke, and then you spoke around the same time. So that was the first time we finally got to meet, and I got to hear the first part and then the ending part. And again, how did you even get into design in the first place? Did you draw a lot growing up?
I drew a hell of a lot growing up. Yeah, believe it or not, like my big thing back then growing up was pen and ink. I loved stipple. I loved crosshatch. Like I was the weird kid that like instead of like just like using like crayons, I had like pens and stuff. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but I had my grandma who passed away later. She was a huge like pothead artist. Like she was part of that hippie generation. But she was huge on art, man. And so I would go visit her with my mom and my stepdad, and she would just push me for art. Like she would give me stuff to draw, like unusual items, which is how I got into pen and ink at like the age of like 8 or 10. And she was just so inspirational with art, man. I mean, granted, she was like a little nuts, but like a good nuts, where she was just so loving. She would push me so much. So I grew up drawing. But I never once thought like I'm going to go on one day and own a design business and have clients and stuff. I drew throughout my childhood. My mom always told me that when she would see my drawings, she always loved that I was thinking differently. So it's like her one of her number one stories she ever tells anybody is there was one day I was drawing in church, and she asked me what I was drawing, and I responded to her, and I said, I'm drawing a machine that can split atoms safely. And she just like said, she looked at me and was like, what? What kid thinks that way? And so she fostered that though, because she saw that I was thinking so different and so adamant on creativity. She fed into that throughout my childhood. So yeah, then I went on, and in high school, I was zoned to go to a high school that was in a bad area. Like when I grew up pretty, I wouldn't say poor, but I grew up really in poverty. I didn't have much.
I was the Walmart baby growing up, dude. I was the Walmart baby.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Payless shoes. Like I have one of my biggest memories, and at the time I was super embarrassed, but now I'm like, hell yeah. Like my parents were dope. So I was playing basketball in high school, or I'm sorry, middle school, and all the kids, they had like these Nikes. You know, everybody back in my middle school, they all wanted to be like MJ, but at like North Carolina. So it was like they wanted the baby blue with the white Nikes. And so everybody on my team got it, but my parents, they went to Payless and they got me the Shaquille O'Neal versions with the light up sole.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. It was just like, back then I was embarrassed, but now I look back and I'm like, man, my parents, they had so little, but man, they tried to give me like the best they could give me. And at that time, yeah, man, it was Payless and stuff. But so yeah, I was zoned for a really bad high school, where there was like shootings and like dude, I could go on this forever.
It sounds like my area, literally. Yeah,
dude, there was drive-bys down my street often because there was 2 drug dealers that were, it was crazy. One street, 2 drug dealers that were against each other, one on one end, one on the other. So, I mean, we lived smack in the middle, so luckily our house didn't get peppered that much. But dude, like I woke up with like bullet holes in our walls sometimes. So yeah, needless to say, my parents did not want me going to that school. So they realized that a school close to mine, Dr. Phillips, had a magnet program that would be focused predominantly on the arts. We had meetings with the dean and all that, and I had to basically do like a trial. So I had to draw some stuff. They wanted me to do 3D, which I had never done 3D. So my parents, they went to Walmart and they got that foam clay stuff you give like a kid. They gave me some foam clay, man, and I made a well out of it. And I don't know if it was that the people that reviewed it just felt sorry for me or what, but I got into it. And dude, if I wouldn't have gotten into that though, I don't know if I would have done this, because my first class, my first freshman year, was graphic design. And dude, as dumb as it sounds, I had no idea like people did art on computers. You know, I thought computers were like analytics or like businessmen stuff. But it was there that I got exposed to Photoshop for the first time. And I just remember looking at that, and at that age in high school going, man, I really like this. Like, I think I could do this for the rest of my life. And from that point, fast forward, I got heavily involved in my church, and started doing their church like design work stuff. And from that point, got kind of fed up with like the pay and the church politics and all that, and moved to Kansas City, which of all places, that's like the most random, but I couldn't find a design job here in Orlando. I'm at that point when I graduated and everything, which mind you, I got kicked out of that school because my grades were bad. But I moved up to Kansas City, got a job at a local church there, and then realized if I wanted to take my art serious, I had to branch away from that. Even though like church and God and Jesus and all that, that's incredibly important for my life. I realized that to have a career outside of it was not bad, which for years, everybody had told me, well, you should be a pastor, you should be a youth pastor, you should be a designer in the church. And I started realizing like that has very little to do with my identity. My identity is making art, right? So I had my first job interview ever. Because like throughout like high school and stuff, I had odd jobs, right? Like working at a grocery store, like that kind of stuff. But I was currently up in Kansas City working for that church, and I had my first job interview. And I remember the guy was such an asshole. He literally was just cutting me down the entire interview. Like, you have no experience. You didn't go to college. Why didn't you go to college? And I was like, I couldn't go to college because my parents couldn't give me money for school. I applied for scholarships and I couldn't get them because my grades were bad. Like, but I was so adamant, like, I'm going to be a designer. I'm going to be an illustrator. I'm going to do this. And so he cut me down the entire interview. He made me do an art test in front of him. It was insane. He like watched every click I made on the mouse. And at the very end of that interview, he told me, listen, I think it's time you explore a different craft. You have no future in art and design. And I left that interview laughing, knowing how wrong that dude would be. And that was one of those hallmark moments in my career where I was like, yep, it's going to feel real good to prove you wrong. And what's hilarious is like literally 5 years later, that company fell apart. They're no longer in existence. I have no idea what the guy's doing. But it was a good hurdle for me to cross over, for sure.
It's funny because I'm the same way. I've had a lot of doubters, and the mentality's kind of changed from I'm not going to prove you wrong, but I'm going to prove myself right.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And something you ended on your talk in Creative South, which really resonates with me because, sometimes dickheads get far in life, hence our current political situation and lots of things in life. But you and me, especially you're a kind guy. Like, what's the importance of not being a dick, and actually treating people like you'd like to be treated? How has that benefited you in your career and your clients and your relationships?
Yeah, I think that has been I have to end my talks with that. Anytime I've done a talk anywhere, that's literally the last thing I say. I just think because, like you just said, like, there's so many dicks, man. Everybody is trying to outdo someone else. They're all trying to cut at somebody else, thinking, yeah, how can I make myself better by making you feel like utter garbage?
Like design Twitter,
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, bro, I mean,
some of the people I looked up to the most are just chopping people down, throwing people under the bus.
Chopping people down, and I'm like, what? So my point is, don't be that person. There's no room for that. Like, for me, and I said it to you through Instagram, is for me, I want to leave a legacy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, yeah, there are some dickheads that have left some bad legacies, right? Like, you have like huge dictators and stuff that were hugely wrong, did horrible things.
Dick is in dictator.
They're known for like wrong stuff. So for me, I want to leave a legacy. So that means if you follow me on Instagram, or you follow me on social media, or you have my email address, I will respond to you and I will tell you whatever you want to know. If you want to know how I do texture the way I will literally write out line for line how I do something. Luckily, right now I'm working with Dustin over at Retro Supply, and I'm going to be working on some brushes, and I'm going to be working on some tutorials so I can actually point people somewhere.
Can you get them set up for Procreate? Can I just plug that real quick?
That would be dope. That would be sweet. Yeah.
Hit that, ride that wave.
Yeah. So I just think there's so many people trying to outdo other people that if we can be a minority group that want to make others around us better than ourselves, we're going to be extremely successful and more successful than the dickheads in the world.
Agreed.
And so that's why, for instance, like I said, the people I'm mentoring, I tell them on a weekly basis, if you are not better than me by the time you're my age, and as long as we've connected and we stay connected, if you're not better than me, I did not do my job as a mentor. Because I'm not worried about people learning my technique or having my brushes or giving them color palettes or telling them what font I use, because they don't have my brain. They do not have my heart where I make my art. So I don't care. And I've reached out to people in the past when I was an early young buck in the design scene. Hey man, what font is that? Or, how did you do that? And they would never respond, or they would be like, well, over time you'll just learn. And it's like, screw you, bro. Are you that insecure? Are you so insecure that you're afraid to pour into someone else's life? What if you told me how you did it? I did it, and then I created something killer. Don't you understand that you were part of that story? So it's all those people throughout my life that I'm pouring into and telling my technique. If they land a sick client, whether they know it or not, I know that my hand has been helpful in helping shape their career. And that is success for me. You know what I mean? So don't be a dick. Don't be the type of person that wants to cut people down. Be the type of person that wants to build them up, pour into people, change their life, shape them, mold them, be there for them. There's just so much negativity, so many wrong things happening in the political arena and social arena. And it's just, I think if you want to stand out at this point, don't be a dick, because all the dicks are getting the attention right now. And pretty soon when they shut up or are removed, only the people that have been silent, humble, and molding other people will be there for the next part of life.
Legacy, for sure. Clearly, we know that working for yourself isn't always sunshine and rainbows, and we know some of these obstacles you recently faced as well. But how does your process go about landing clients? I know are you represented by Closer and Closer, Drew Melton?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, I know he's slowly building a squad over there, and that's a slow growth thing. But how do you attract and onboard clients? And then I want to talk about pitching and presenting and pricing. The more transparent you can get, the better. I know there's,
of course, man.
There's tiptoeing around certain things.
I am represented by Closer and Closer. I was fully represented. I've moved to partial. And this is something I've talked to Drew about before. But to be honest, I've been represented for 6 months-ish, maybe a little less. I don't fully remember. I've only gotten one project through it. So I would definitely say, for all you artists out there that think being represented is going to fix everything, it doesn't necessarily. Drew does work his butt off, though. The dude, it's not that he's not doing the right things. It's just the people that he's presenting to maybe aren't the aesthetic that I create, which is fine. I understand that.
Do you have to pay for that service then?
No. Well, if I get a project through him, then obviously it's a percentage and stuff. But no, I don't pay for the service at all. He does it, for free.
I wasn't sure what partial meant.
Oh, yeah. Well, so full representation is basically where any and every inquiry that comes through me, I have to funnel through him.
Okay.
Partial basically means if I get a client and I don't see any viable reason why he should be involved, if it's let's say a quick turnaround or a low delivery amount, if it's not a huge project, there's no point to have somebody manage the project that I know I could manage easily by myself.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I've only gotten one project through him currently, and it's a project I actually pushed through just because we both agreed that it'd be good to see how we work together. I mean, it went really well. Just recently wrapped that up. But to be honest, the majority of the clients I get come from me just hustling, whether it's being part of Working Not Working, publishing on Dribbble, publishing on LinkedIn. Literally, social media is the best and most freest form of self-promotion possible. So why would people not some people, man, they'll like be like, my work's not good enough to post. I'm like, what do you mean your work's not? Everything's good enough to post. Just post. Somebody's gonna like it.
You got a show to grow.
Yeah, dude, it's for real.
So when say an email hits your inbox, what's your process look like? Do you have a questionnaire with people? Do you jump on a Skype call, or how does that work? What if it's like zero context in an email? Like, what do you charge for a logo? Like, sometimes I get some of those super bland lacking context messages, and it immediately throws a red flag up. But Matt Vergades, he responds to like everything, and he says some of those ones without much context end up landing to bigger jobs.
Yeah, I would say unless there's like blatant, massive red flags, nothing's a red flag for me. Unless it's like the client doesn't make any sense, like they're speaking like a robot language, I won't respond. But I respond to pretty much everything. And I do have a questionnaire. I don't have every client fill it out just because I don't think it's fully necessary. I have, it's mostly focused on illustration and branding. But again, it's kind of up to my discretion on whether I question them. And it's basically just like a list of questions, asking them about like, what is your company? What do you do? What makes you different than the people around you? Who are the people around you? Who's your biggest competitor? Do you view them as competitor? Like those kinds of like real deep questions. I ask just because what I've grown to realize is the more questions you ask your clients, the more you're going to understand if this is a viable client you want to work with. You don't want the person that doesn't have the answers. There's nothing worse than asking them, well, what do you want? And they say, I don't know.
You have creative freedom.
Yeah, like that is probably the worst thing a client can give you is just do whatever you want.
I know what I don't want when I see it. That is the worst. And those are clients from hell, and that is solely your accountability because you got yourself into that situation.
Exactly. So, I mean, I went from having my dream client Disney to being blacklisted by my dream client and ruining that. So for me, if you email me and you're a small business, unless I am so backed up and your budget is so bad, I'm going to respond and I'm going to try to make art for you. One of the other things I've done too is taken the people I'm mentoring and using them. So I'll give the person two different rates, right? I'll say my rate, if you want me to touch it, or Studio Grason's rate, which would be my other people that I'm mentoring and I'm trying to expose different projects to. You can have their rate, which I will obviously bump up a little bit because a lot of them, they don't know their worth yet. And I'm trying to teach them what you're worth. But it's to be honest, it is drastically lower than what I charge because my time is of a lot more value when I have a lot larger projects going on at the same time than a small logo.
And the amount of experience you've had goes into it as well.
Exactly. Like how much money it takes, like how many hours I spend talking to the client versus making art. Like that all has to be factored into it. But I would definitely say, man, it's rare that I would ever respond to or not respond to an email or an inquiry. I would say the largest amount of non-responses I give is when it's a recruiter and I can tell they literally copy and pasted something, or like through dribble. Like when I can tell they've literally not mentioned my name or my art and they're just simply saying, I love your profile. You make killer art. Like if you're not going to be specific, I'm going to mostly think you've copy and pasted and you're just simply trying to find the best price. And I will not give you your best price. You know what I mean? I'm not in the business. I'm trying to feed my family. I'm trying to make a living and I'm trying to do things different than I've ever done them before. And so with that means I will probably not respond if you have not been specific enough to make me think you care about having me make the art. So, yeah.
So when you go about pitching and pricing, do you have like a one set price or do you kind of go through a tiered, here's this package, here's this package, here's this package?
Yeah, I do tiered. Also, I know every client is so vastly different. Like, I mean, even if you were to compare Target versus Google, which are two clients that I've had for years now, they're two very different companies with two very different price points. You think, well, they're just both huge, like they have to be like massive budgets, and it's just not the case. So what I try to do is I never give a client the number first. They need to tell me what they can afford. I'm not going to spit out a number.
You get the budget up front. Yep.
Yeah. And if they say, well, I don't know, then I tell them, think about it. Think about your current budget, your current dream for your company. And when you do know, send me a number. Because I think it's incredibly disservicing for them to have a really low budget. And like, let's say it's a logo, right? And they have a storefront. It's a coffee shop. They're going through a rebrand because maybe they just got acquired by another company that has a lot more seed capital or something. So they want them to rebrand. They come to me and are like, we want you to make a logo. Well, what's your budget? I don't really have a budget. I don't really know what this kind of stuff costs. If I spit back and I go, well, you just told me you got acquired, so I know there's money there. Well, I'm going to charge you $3,000 to $5,000 for a logo alone. If they have been acquired by a small business that is not like incredibly flush with cash, that figure is going to scare the daylights out of them. But truthfully, I care about them. I care about their business. I care about helping their business grow, and I care about the way their business looks to the people they're trying to reach. So that's why I think it's incredibly vital to get them to give you a figure, because once you get that figure, you can either say, well, I have this team of people that I typically give work like this to. I'll oversee the work for you. Or, can you meet me halfway and raise the budget to, whatever.
So when they give you that number, is that automatically the highest tier? Like you'll reach that number, like say we have a budget of $6,000 for this logo. Is that immediately the top tier for you? Like you hit that cap for them?
Or if I can register that they're going to need a lot more, I might try to ask for a slight amount more.
Like offer a more professional package of like 8, 9, 10 grand, and then that $6,000 would become the middle.
Exactly. So, well, if you want a huge package, you want cup design, you want, napkins, you want blah, 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 blah. That's this. What you're asking for is this. And I try to do it in a way that is not going to completely undercut them, because I'm not trying to screw them. Like I said, like my business is very people focused, not dollar focused. And so I try to do the best I can and try to do the most for every single client, whether it is a large or small client.
I like it. That helps a lot, because I found like 3-tiered pricing has worked really, really well for me in like Instagram sponsor post or even murals, so that's been very helpful. And because I've pigeonholed myself into stuff before and offered one price and scared people away.
Yeah, that's something I've also started to try to add in tastefully, is the whole I have 30,000 followers, well, almost 30,000 on Instagram. If I share this and I share that you have an Instagram account, there's a good chance some of those people may just go follow you because they like me. That is actually worth dollars. Now, I don't do that all the time. I'm still not fully okay with like being an influencer.
It's weird to say that. Yet you have influence and I have influence, but it's weird to say that because we have humble beginnings and humble middles.
I'm like, dude, you don't know like all the stuff I've been like, what? But I do offer that. I also always check with my clients now, since I screwed up with Disney. I will hound a client like, hey, may I share this? Well, let me check with so-and-so. I will literally email them the next day. Did you check? Because I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I also know if I post, it's going to help their business.
It's extra value. So it's extra value.
So I've started playing with that idea to add that into, certain clients where I think it's tasteful. But yeah, for sure.
All right. Before we jump into rapid fire questions, what's one piece of advice you'd give to a creative at any stage of life who struggles starting or sticking with it?
Don't be a dick, because like I said, that's horrible. Like it ruins your influence on people. But definitely, I think The biggest, I did a question, and I think it fits perfect with your question, just about like what is the biggest hurdle, and a lot of people are just afraid. Like everybody is scared
To start?
and they're scared of failure. Yeah, they're scared to start. They're scared. They have a dream in their heart, and they're not currently living it, and they're miserable and they're hating it. And a lot of times I think people don't understand that you got to hate life a lot before you can live your dream. Like that's just part of it.
Ooh, that's so true.
Your dream isn't your dream if you can just do it immediate, right? Like your dream has to be the end goal, and the only way it's a dream is if you hate where you are right now. So it's okay to hate where you are, but it's not okay to settle. And a lot of people are settling because they're afraid. They're afraid that, maybe I want to go full time with my business, but I'm just afraid that I won't have the amount of clients I need to make that an actual life decision. Or I'm afraid that, my aesthetic isn't pleasing enough and maybe people won't like it. And I think that's kind of the issue too with social media is I can post something I've done for Williams-Sonoma and it tanks, right, on likes, but then I get an inquiry from business. Instead, if I post something Disney related, I'll get like 2,000 likes. And it's like, but I'm not even doing Disney work. So it's like people get caught up in the numbers and they think that means success. So I think people are living in an entire mental state of fear, self-loathing, unhappy, thinking their dream will only be a dream, instead of recognizing that hating where you are right now is only part of getting to the place you want to be. And taking the step out and planning. A lot of people too, man, they just don't plan. They want to go full time with their business. They want to get through that sticking point, right? But they don't have a plan. They're just like, well, it'll just happen. Like one day I'll get enough clients freelance that I can just quit. And it's like, no, man, it doesn't always happen that way. And yeah, for me, I started freelancing like right out the gate. And yeah, I've only had 2 design jobs, but you'd have to be an idiot to think I haven't planned. And that I haven't put down on paper how many clients I need, what are my current clients, what am I projecting? Like people think it's just going to happen overnight. And that's just, come on, man. Like how many stories of even the most successful basketball, football actors, how many times is it that they were just discovered in a coffee shop one day? It's like, it doesn't happen. We have to plan. So I think getting over fear, planning, and don't be a dick would be my biggest advice for people.
Something I want to add to it is when you do start and sticking with it, treat your side project or your dream like it's already your full-time job. Like I'm not full-time Perspective Collective, but I show up each day like this shit is my job. And on the outside looking in, people believe that. People don't believe I work a day job sometimes. So, I think that's a huge factor of it too, in a mindset mentality. Attack it like you already do it full time.
Yeah, I think it even puts, like you said, people think you do what you do right now full time. In reality, you have a day job. And it's because you go at it with so much respect and so much devotion that even the outside clients that may come to you and want you to do a mural or do whatever, they have already bought into you. And that's all it is you, if you work at it and you treat it as the greatest dream, right? Come on, like if it's your dream, you should be grinding at it, right? You should be working towards it. Like don't be scared, don't be afraid, don't be wrapped up in fear. Go after that, you know what I mean? So yeah, man, I completely agree with you. Treat that side hustle like it's a main hustle, man.
Yeah, bet on yourself, buy into yourself, and others will eventually buy into you.
Exactly.
All right, let's jump into rapid fire questions. If you were on death row, what would your last slice of delicious pizza be?
Oh, I'm a sucker for meat pizza, dude. So if you just give me a pizza with every meat imaginable, that's what it's going to be. All the meats.
All the meats.
I love it.
Meat man.
Yeah, it could be thin, it could be thick. As long as it's got all the meats, man, I'm happy.
Thick meats. Script, serif or sans serif?
I would go condensed sans serif.
Condensed sans serif.
I had to throw in condensed sans serif. I love a good condensed font, dude.
All right, you gotta bump the tracking out on some of those. I think of Perspective Collective and a condensed sans serif, and you need some tracking. Otherwise, it just all blends. All right, well, right into this one. What's your favorite typeface?
Right now, I would say probably Harbor. It's a kind of like deep-edged serif font. but it's definitely one of my favorites right now because I'm finding it to be working well with a handful of clients. And then probably, I can't remember the actual name to it, which this is going to suck because people are probably going to want to see it. It's like Robu Script, Robu
Yeah,
Script.
by Andre Robu, or yeah.
Yeah, dude, that font gives me life, bro. Every time I'll just throw it into like client decks. If I'm doing a presentation to present some work to clients, I'll just throw that in as like an accent font to draw their attention to something, and it has worked every single time.
All right, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I would love to build my business into a studio where I have people under me, but I don't know that I actually want like a design agency per se. Maybe more of a collective of individuals that we all have the same kind of like goal and mindset. But I would definitely like to be continuing to build my business. I'd love to be moved, because right now we're actually looking at leaving Orlando. I'd love to be on the coast of Florida, preferably the West Coast, because I just love the ocean. We love kayaking. So in 5 years, I'd like to be doing that. And by that point, I'd be celebrating Finn's 5th birthday and Harper's 10th. So
ballin'.
That'd be where I'd like to be as well.
All right, last one. Where can people go to find you online?
Oh, man. Instagram, my website, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat.
All Adam Grason. No Y. No Y in Grason.
No Y. Drop the Y. Actually, what's funny is my family used to be Y, and then there was a family argument, like back in however long ago that was. Huge family argument, and then my side of the family left that side of the family, and we dropped the Y. So if you're a Y Grason out there, you're my family.
Dude, thank you so much. You brought a ton of energy, opened it up, not scared to admit your flaws and faults, and that's what this show is about, and not being a dick, making an impact on the creative community. That you fit the mold. I'm sorry it took so damn long to get you here. We've been talking about this and doing a collaboration for like over a year now, so thank you for your patience with me, man. I can't wait to drop this one.
Dude, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm grateful to be part of this. I've always admired you. Your grind, your hustle, me and you are very similar in that we love making others great. And so to be on this, be part of something you're building, it just makes me very happy. So thank you, man.
Man, my pleasure. Well, let's keep in touch, and if you need anything, just holler, let me know. All right?
You got it.
All right, take it easy. Peace. Adam Grason of Grason Studio, everyone. It's not easy to open up publicly and peel back the layers of your pitfalls. I believe sharing your story proves your humanity and gives people permission to accept their failures and to see them as stepping stones to move forward. I have the utmost respect for Adam as a creative and most importantly as a human being. I love you, brother, and I'm sure he would love to hear from you if he lit a fire under your ass today like he did for me. This week's dose of inspiration goes out to my good friend Dustin McLaughlin of Dusty Dink on the Grams. And first off, Dustin, aka D-Mac, was my partner for 4 years with the clothing line we ran called Daydreamin' Clothing. I talked about it in the past. And the road of daydreaming ended up leading me to start Perspective Collective. And at the same time, it led him to pursuing his gifts of photography and videography. D-Mac has a talented eye and is able to capture the magic within a moment. He specializes in portraits, live music, especially like festivals, and he lives down in Texas, so there's always tons of live shows around him. And he's also specializes in shooting life from just interesting angles. He's a rad dude, a freaking amazing friend, and he's definitely a person that you should follow. Again, that's Dusty Dink, DUSTYDINK on Instagram. Let's talk a little bit about the Facebook community because damn, this thing is popping. It's growing each week, and I only plug it here on the podcast because I want the right people in it. So if you're looking for accountability, community, a place to share your work, people to collaborate with all over the world, a place where you can give and receive solid feedback and get access to resources like lettering tips, online tutorials for Procreate, YouTube, whatever, and other things that'll elevate your creative game, then I encourage you to check out the Perspective-Collective Facebook group. We have a thriving community building, and we would love to have you be a part of the family. So again, hop on Facebook. Not everybody loves Facebook, but the group aspect of it is better than any other platform. So that's why I use it. And it's the Perspective-Collective to get involved with some rad people such as yourself. Now, if you're enjoying what you hear and you want to support the growth of the show, I have a few ways that you can make that happen. The first, as I mentioned in the intro, is by becoming a backer at patreon.com/perspectivepodcast. Your pledge not only helps support the growth of the show, but I do my best to hook you up with some rewards, so it's a win-win. The second way to support the show is for you crypto heads out there. In the show notes for each episode, I'll have addresses for Bitcoin, Ether, or Litecoin donations if you prefer to go that route. And finally, you can subscribe and leave a ratings and review over on Apple Podcasts. And not only helps the show climb up the charts and get discovered, but it gives me an opportunity to give you a nice little thank you plug like this week's rating and review. And this one comes from my good friend Daniel Palacios, aka High Pulp, and he titled this one Weekly Motivation. And Daniel states, Scotty is meant for this. He always brings the fire to lift you up and remind you that you're not alone in your struggles. Every episode will leave you feeling motivated. They're short and punchy, not always since I do interviews now, but they're short and punchy, which is perfect for my morning commute. Definitely give the podcast a listen. Thank you, Daniel. If you don't know who Daniel is, look up High Pulp on Instagram. The dude kicks out some wicked brush script calligraphy, and his vector game is on point too. And as I wrap things up, I want to give a huge thanks to Áine Brennan for making this episode sound so good all the way from Ireland. This girl works her butt off, and she is a hustler, and damn it, I respect her. And a huge thanks goes to Nick Jenkins of Blookah for all the dope theme music you hear on the show. Check him out at SoundCloud or on Instagram at Blookah. And he's got a couple new zingers out right now that you should totally check out as well. And as you finish out your week strong, you know I want to encourage you to keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and keep creating. You got this.